what is business to you? Why did you start a business, and what does business mean to you?
Honestly, I'm a very accidental entrepreneur. It was not my plan to become an entrepreneur or to own a business. I do think that when we are in our 20s, a lot of us don't actually have any idea what we want to do. However, it's one thing after the other, right? Oh, I want to be a doctor, and then I want to do this. I want to do an MBA, and I want to be in the corporate world. It was a whole bunch of those things for me. Um, and I was working in sales from the beginning of my career. So that was serendipitous, but it really worked out for me because with my personality and the fact that I generally like to solve problems as a career, it was the perfect fit. At one point, I was actually taking a sabbatical. So I'd been doing this for, I want to say, 4 or 5 years at that stage. And I wanted to take a break just for a really short while, a month or two. And I remember that one of my customers that was based in Australia at that point of time, they had liked the way I put together my team in India. So they liked the account management team that was interacting with them and the sales people that had spoken with them. So they asked me if I could help them set something like that up for a new company that they had acquired. So I said, okay, I mean, it was just an opportunity and I had nothing to lose. So I said, let's go for it. So we did that. And I think that worked out really well over the next, say, 3 to 4 months. And then they brought in a couple of referrals. And then the referrals brought referrals. And that's sort of how the business got started. In about a year, I had about 8 to 10 customers. And I realized that I couldn't be operating as an individual contractor anymore. And I needed to set up an agency. So all of these things that, like a lot of people who are in sales, they decide to set up an agency. They say, hey, I'm going to go do this because I have this purpose. For me, it was quite an accident in the beginning before I realized I was running a business. And then I set one up. That's kind of how it all started for me. Which is also why I did not, for somebody running, an outbound agency, we didn't do a lot of sales or marketing in the initial years at all. Almost everything that we had was network or referral driven.
Wow. It's interesting because when most people start a business, this has been my experience, even with myself as well. There's the initial phase where it's like all about passion and you kind of do the thing that you're giving to people and then you convert it to something that you're going to do for others. But one of the common mistakes is that people forget about sales. They forget about, they start to, get some referrals. They think this is how it's going to be forever. Referrals, referrals, referrals. I'll just keep doing good work and they'll come to my door. But what people missed out on is sales. So when you started, are you saying that you had referrals from the get-go, or you were doing a sales system? Were you doing your service that you're doing for people in your business?
I actually did not have a sales system. I've made the exact same mistakes that you're talking about, right? However, the difference is, unlike a lot of people, I did not get into this thinking I'm going to do this business and I'm going to be doing this 10 years from now as well. I sort of just started because, like I said, I was taking a break. I had this opportunity. It was very exciting. So I said the wrong thing, right? I started working in 2009. So while I was in college, I started my internship and that converted into my first job. So 2009 to 15, I'd already been working for about 7 years at that point. So I just wanted to take a break. And I did not anticipate that break would go on for such a long time, or that it would go so well, or that I would actually enjoy what I was doing. So all of those things were surprises to me. And then I realized that I had the experience of managing large sales teams. It's just that now I would be doing it for other people. And in the beginning, we didn't even call ourselves an agency. 1 year after I started working as an independent contractor, that's when I actually set up the company itself, by which time I already had like 8 to 10 customers. It was okay in the initial years. The other piece I also think, specifically to my situation, was the fact that, when you start out and you want to run the business and you want to be successful and you want to be profitable, you're thinking, you might be thinking that you'll get the referrals and you'll continue to get them. I actually did not think at all. To me, the thought was really, let's see how far this goes. And like when I say it right now, it sounds ridiculous, but honestly, that's kind of how I thought about it. And it took me a full 2 to 3 years to sort of recognize that, hey, I'm a full-time business owner now, and I have 20 plus employees. And I can't just pack up and go somewhere if things go south. So that's when I started realizing that, hey, I need to start doing something about sales. Yeah.
And did something happen to trigger that? Like, was it like a month where you had no sales coming for a reason, or a crisis perhaps, or it just an idea?
Yeah, you've done this before. I can see that from your questions. There seems to be a pattern. So yes, so there was a crisis, but not a lack of business crisis. It was a so we had all of these invoices that were due in the books, and then for some reason, for a sort of entire quarter, people were just not paying up. I think there was something going on with the economy at that point of time. I don't remember. It was like late 2019. And we had all of these invoices that were due, but they weren't really coming in. Now, these were customers that we've been working with forever. So I can't just go back and tell them, hey, I'm going to stop work if you don't pay me. So that wasn't a possibility either. So then I think that was the point at which we realized we needed to diversify and have more customers who would then sort of come in and like, I think there was a crisis. The crisis was essentially too much accounts receivable and nothing really coming through in terms of cash. So cash flow was our issue. And then once we recognized that, we said, hey, oh, well, that was our lowest point as well. So that was the point at which my co-founder and I, we decided that if you're not able to turn this around in the next couple of months, I think like we'll have to sort of start looking at options and see what we do. It was really bad at that point. But then 2020 came in, COVID also came in with that. By March, we were in full lockdown. But that also ended up being a huge benefit for us because you see, as an agency, a lot of times the question that you have to answer is why not in house? And then sales or business development is always seen as this core internal function. It was seen as that kind of function. Today, it seems a little unimaginable because there's I think a couple of agencies in my street at this point, right? And that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's kind of true as well. Um, in those days, though, there weren't that many agencies. There were a few big ones, but that was about it. So COVID, however, came in and it made everything digital. So everybody was going digital, and then we had a leg up because we already knew how to operate a sales team, like in I want to say the top of the funnel team, digitally. So then when we started running our outbound campaigns, they really started paying off, and all of our experience and that had already been 3 years. So our experience in doing this remotely really helped. So we grew very fast during the 2020, 21, 22 years.
And most people that are joining business now, just in relation to what you're saying there about when there's a crisis, we often look for ways to bring in sales. Most people, and I mean most people is in my age, from my experience chatting with people my age, what they believe is that what they see online is that someone starts a business, they run advertising, and they spend, there's the advertising management, and there's the ad spend, then there's a creative of it, and they go through this whole process and realize after maybe 1 or 2 months that, hey, this isn't much better than having a 9 to 5 job. I've got all this cash I'm spending, and things are all these things I didn't think of, which is going to happen regardless. And they think that social media advertising is the only way to go. Um, in your experience, so just remind me, when you began your sales, when you diversified your sales process or added some different streams in, what was the first one you did first and foremost? And we'll tie it in, I guess, to what you're doing now as well. But what was the first stream that you diversified, maybe the second and third? And if you could maybe comment also on people doing social media advertising as a one-way street to lots of money when it doesn't always work.
I We started with outbound. I mean, we were an outbound agency. We'd been doing lead gen for a lot of companies at that point, and we'd also started specializing in the tech space. We were always B2B, but then over the previous couple of years, maybe just because of my experience, we attracted more technology customers, and then at that point, we also started having a lot of SaaS customers, a lot of SaaS product customers. So that was kind of the space that we were in. And outbound was perfect because it wasn't as crowded as it is today, right? So about 5 years earlier, you could send out emails and easily get responses. You could cold call people and they would still pick up and speak with you. So it was a little bit of a different landscape then, but outbound was what we did first. Actually, outbound was all we did until 2022. So for the first 3 years, we only did outbound. I don't think that's the right thing to do though. I think that you start with outbound as a great place to what we call like a total addressable market. I could target any B2B technology company. Therefore, I had a huge market to address, right? So that's my total addressable market. When you have something like that, outbound will really work for several years, and that's exactly what happened. It did. But then in those 3 years, however, if we had also focused on starting up some marketing activities, probably a year and a half into doing outbound, we would have also been able to build a brand, which we didn't do because we were so outbound focused and it was working so well for us. We never thought about diversifying. And I think one of the key things that bootstrap businesses, they kind of make that mistake with is like, why fix something that's not broken? Like, keep doing what's working for you right now, and don't really explore other stuff. And because of the fact that you always have to be cognizant of how you're spending your money, you don't really want to take these big risks and do things that may or may not pay off for you. I feel like that kind of attitude is why we didn't do some of the marketing, some of the brand building activities that we should have started. I think, yeah, in 2021, we should have started. And if we had done that, I think we'd be in a different place today. But I think it's just a journey, right? We all go through it in different ways. We learn at different paces. We all get there eventually.
Eventually, yeah. I mean, it can be so tough running a business because, I mean, especially if you're if you're stubborn, perhaps. I've seen people who start a business and they have this one thing in their mind, and then the sunk fallacy cost comes in where I have to do it this way. And I think a part of being a good business owner, at least from my experience, is that you have to learn to let go and be able to not only intuitively, I know it sounds odd to say that, but I think intuitively listen to what life is telling you, like, hey, try this approach, try that, and also look at the numbers as well. It's like this weird balance, this like weird kind of potion of mixing things together of different elements.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely agree with that. I think one of the key things that you might fall into, and this is true of life, not just business, right? You kind of have a certain pattern of functioning, and then those patterns become habits, and those habits are very difficult to break out of, even when they're not working for you. So I think we kind of realized this in a couple of years, right? We knew that like the outcome from outbound was constantly reducing. And that's normal because when your entire market is unexplored and you're doing something versus you've been doing this for about 2 years, so people have kind of heard about you by then, you have to start diversifying, but then you don't want to move fast enough. You kind of know it instinctively, like your head knows this, then your heart wants to stay and do what you're doing already because it's familiar and it's comfortable, right? I feel like that's the one piece we should have done differently. So therefore, I also think the other piece to consider here is the fact that the entire business environment is changing so much. Even what we do as a company, right? It's changed so much in the last year. So when we first started, cold calling was the biggest thing that we would do, right? Because outbound was largely cold calling. This was in 2015. And then by say 16 or 17, it was mostly email. And then by 18, 19, 20, LinkedIn had really started picking up as a place to sort of connect with people professionally and tap them, to sort of get business from them. So it was LinkedIn. And then we saw the rise and fall of LinkedIn as the channel. It's not the fall in the sense that people don't use LinkedIn anymore, but it's again so overcrowded that you cannot just go and say, hey, Luke, I want to talk to you about how I can help you. And no one's going to really care about that. They're not even going to accept your invitation, right? So we saw that happening. And then we started doing omnichannel because that was, the only way to catch people's attention. And today,
What was that? Sorry, omni-channel is in multiple channels?
like across multiple channels, right? You try LinkedIn. So that's social media piece, right? And I'm not talking about posting content, which we can talk about later, but I'm talking about connecting with people, sort of presenting your value to them on a high level, talking pain points and figuring out if there's a fit, right? So you do that on LinkedIn. You can still send emails that talk about your business, your service, and what you can do for them, the numbers or the metrics that you'll be able to move and so on. There was still the cold calling piece. And then today, however, like with AI, everything's changed again in the last 6 months. So I almost feel like what you talked about, that ability to adapt and not just get attached too much to any one thing, I feel like that's the most important thing right now because, again, how we offer our service has changed significantly in the last 4 to 5 months.
And how has AI impacted? Like what's some of the changes that you're making towards your approach? Like if you can give an example of, not specifics because obviously it's what you do day in day out, but what's some examples of how things have changed with AI?
Um, Lots of things have changed with AI. So people keep talking about how outbound is going to be dead. I don't think outbound is ever going to be dead, but I think it's going to be quite unrecognizable in a few years. It's already unrecognizable from how it was a decade ago, right? I think you and I, we different ages, but we live in a generation where we will continuously have to literally reskill ourselves, not upskill, but reskill ourselves every couple of years because that's how fast things changing. So with respect to our business, what I would say we've changed is the way we deliver. The way we deliver and how we deliver is the biggest thing, right? So personalized outreach was basically the buzz everywhere. And the biggest problem with personalization is you would always have to sort of achieve that balance between personalization and volume. Because at the end of the day, it's also a numbers game. So you have to do a certain number of people because at any given point of time, maybe 3 to 4% of the people that you reach out to are actively looking for exactly what you're selling. And then the other people in the other 96 to 97%, you have to kind of create problem awareness and you start from there. That's literally starting in stage zero, not stage one. So now there has to be volume. So you have to achieve that balance between volume and personalization. Now, personalization was manual. You had to sort of go look at people's profiles, look for company news, pick up information about funding, things like that, and then add in those personalization pieces. And that itself we've seen change, right? There used to be early personalization tools, and they would just pick up things like, oh, we went to the same university, or I saw that recommendation and that was amazing. Stuff like that. It worked until it worked, and then it stopped. But today you can do personalization at scale because there are tools available, AI-based tools that are able to take that combine data, outreach, and personalization because they will be able to pick up these things from LinkedIn, from the news, from funding information. And if you're able to place that correctly in your outreach, you can kind of do this at scale. So to give you a sense, if I would just be able to do 400 or 500 emails a month that are properly personalized, through one SDR, today we can kind of do 2,000. So that's the extent to which things have changed. So I would have needed 4 people to do what we're able to do today with AI. The catch there, of course, is the fact that everyone's going to figure that out soon. So you're going to have a lot of personalized, thoughtful messages in your inbox, and you will get bored of those as well. So we'll have to figure something out for that. But I'm hoping we have at least 1 year before that starts happening.
What do you think will be next?
I truly think so. I see a lot, like for my business, right? For my business, I do think that there's going to be a lot of AI that comes in and replaces what SDR. The SDR function is essentially the people who fill the top of the funnel, right? So they get you the meetings with interested prospects. So about 70% of all of their work, I expect, it's already happening, will be automated. So then the remaining 30% is the people who are able to bring in the strategy, the strategic thought process about how to make something work. And they have to know how to use AI and incorporate it into their work in such a way that what they're doing is just better for it. And the AI revolution is it's not coming. It's already here. And we all just need to be prepared for it. And I think it's not a bad thing. I mean, if you really think about it, that's what I've been doing from the industry times, right? Like every piece that was manual and time consuming has been slowly, one by one, we've been replacing all of that with machines. I think this is just the next step in that. And we will evolve. I think that in the process, we just need to make sure that we are not collateral damage.
Of course, definitely. And so, as far as the sales side of things, let's just imagine there's an individual who, forget their age, they just started a new business. And I know it's very general, but how would you recommend someone who's starting a new business to approach acquisition of clients? I mean, obviously, there's different industries, I get that, but super high level, how would someone approach it?
If you're in the B2B space, like that's the only space on which I can offer any advice at all, I kind of think that you should sort of look at how much money you have to invest and then decide what you want to do. I think two things that will still work are one, a personal brand on LinkedIn, and two, because that's one thing that's only going to take your own time for a while, right? And then like some tools that are available will help you prepare content faster. That's one piece I think is very, very important. Second is, of course, outbound. I'm going to say outbound because it's one of the, especially with all the tools that are available, it's one of the most effective ways to quickly get in front of your audience. And then, depending on who your audience is, they might not necessarily be getting bombarded with these messages every single day. So, even for our customers, for instance, like, right, like if I am going to target, say, e-commerce or SaaS as an industry, they get these messages all the time. So you know that response rates are going to be significantly lower than if I were to target, say, manufacturing. So for somebody that's targeting, say, manufacturing or retail, one of those conventional industries, I know mining is big in Australia. You can just email these people and they would respond. And you can reach out to them on LinkedIn and they will still respond. And then the second piece, and this is one of those things I think I made a mistake with, that I think people, if they're starting today, shouldn't, which is to start out with building their personal brand on LinkedIn today. LinkedIn is also extremely busy right now, right? Like with so many content creators, I think the algorithm itself is going through a toss with kind of understanding what to do with all of this content. No, I don't think it's going through a toss. I mean, it's kind of figuring things out, so to speak, right? There's so much content.
Reshuffling.
Yeah. But I do think that people will get bored of it. I think that's the one thing I'm pretty certain about. Everybody starts out with writing content, but it's incredibly hard to keep at it. It's incredibly hard to actually get up every day and make sure you post at 9 a.m. Yes, there are tools that schedule stuff, but that means you'll have to work over the weekend and write content for the rest of the week. There's so many pieces there. I definitely think that at least 50% of people who start will give up, right? And if you simply persist in putting that content out day after day, month after month, you're definitely going to build a brand. And that will pay off for you, because at least 30 to 40% of all leads that we get are just literally from the posts that I put up on LinkedIn. I talk about a case study and I get a couple of leads that day. I talk about overall what mistakes people could be doing with their outbound, and we get a few more leads that day. And I will say this one thing. I don't think there's any need to hoard your knowledge to yourself. I just put everything out there. Stuff that worked, stuff that didn't work, the mistakes that we made. Because that's the most honest thing that you can do for the people that are connected with you. And in some sense, it really resonates with people, the fact that you're being honest and you want to add value. And that's when you start acquiring clients. These are the two main things. Do some outbound, use email, use LinkedIn, don't cold call, because as a business owner, you can't just do it on your own. And I would definitely say focus on building a brand on LinkedIn. It's still the best professional platform to attract and then connect with people, not just for the intent of, like, hey, how can I make this person my customer? But try and see if you can add value in every interaction. And I think you'll end up with customers automatically.
A really powerful question that I ask is, how can I serve you? What can I do to support you in your business? Right? I'm not starting messages like that saying, hey, how can I serve you? I don't start like that, but it's always at some point in the relationship, it's like, what can I do for you? How can I serve you? And speaking on the personal branding side of things, so my beginning point in the business that I'm in now was on Instagram and Facebook. And I left my job at the time and I had some savings there. So I put it all aside and I just said to myself, I'm going to create one piece of content each day. It began with carousels back then. So the sliding images on Instagram. So I do the copywriting for that. And then it transitioned to reels. And then, as the market changed and things diversified, and that's a big thing as well. It's like jumping on the trend. So I was doing Instagram posts and I said to myself, I love doing this so much. This will be I want to do this for the rest of my life. Like, I just love creating. I love cutting the videos here and see what happens there and change the engagement. And for the first 6 to 9 months, it was okay. It wasn't incredible. I spent all my time researching, how does the algorithm work and everything, right? And then I think it was about after a year, maybe a year and 3 months, I caught onto the trend of, so Facebook, they launched the Reels on Facebook, right? Now, just a quick note for anyone listening there when it comes to social media side of things and you're thinking about posting content, always keep an eye on for new features and new trends on each platform, because they want to push that feature, A, to test its validity, and B, also to get usage out of it, to show people they can use it. So when Facebook launched Reels on Facebook, when it wasn't on there before, right now it's like, oh, that's there. It's always been there. No, it hasn't. It was launched back in, I think it was 2022 in April or maybe even March or something around then. So as soon as I was able to do that, I started posting. And even I remember there was like, sometimes on social media, there's like settings work on your phone, but don't work on your computer. And it's really weird. And certain features get released and then sometimes they're not there. It's just really weird. I remember having the feature only on my computer. So I remember seeing the Reels being posted. I'm like, here's a huge opportunity. So I jumped onto Facebook and I started uploading Reels. First video, like 5,000 views, second video, 10,000, 15,000, 25,000. So eventually a couple of them reached 100, 105,000, 100,000 and just kept going up and up from there. So the point of this story is that came from, I was prepared when the moment arose, right? And then I took opportunity of that. And that's how my whole business started, because people then saw that content, and it's still happening to this day. Like, I don't post as much as I should, and I know I should. But from then, people came to me and like, hey, how did you create your content? Can you do it for me? Next thing you know, like, your same things what you said, you kind of fell into it. Next thing you know, referrals. Next thing you know, like, you've got 3 or 4 clients on board, and you're doing the work yourself, and you're doing 80 hours a week or whatever it is, and then you have to hire someone, and then you realize leadership's important, then operations, and then you're building out software systems and stacks. And so I really believe that if someone's committed to it, like if someone's in a full-time job and listening to this and they have something inside them they want to share that they know is important that the world's going to appreciate, start by just doing one post a day and choose one platform. And if you have time, distribute it on other platforms, but choose one platform, choose your style, text, video, it could be long form video, it could be podcast, and just do a consistent amount of that, preferably every single day, preferably once a week if it's a podcast. And you get to a point where something will click. One video will go viral, and next thing you know, you have this whole new life. So I can certainly attest the personal brand side of things.
That was actually really helpful, Luke, because especially the piece you talked about, you said look out for the new features. I think a lot of us make that mistake because it's new. You don't really want to do anything with it, right? And that's where I think you sort of get lost in the noise. It's happened to me as well. So on Instagram, I used to have a travel blog. And then I posted a lot of travel content. I really enjoyed it. But then Reels came up, and I hate doing video. Like, I hate doing video of any kind. In fact, like, doing podcasts and webinars is a new thing that I'm being pushed to do by my team right now. Otherwise, like, I'm really not somebody who's very comfortable with video. So I said, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And then before I knew it, Reels was everything. But also at that point, travel, blogging on, like, using Instagram as a platform was also very, very overcrowded. There were all of these sports and things like that. And I had a job, like a full-time job. So I could not entirely focus on doing just that. So I said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. But I see that happening now with LinkedIn as well, which is not a platform I can afford to give up on. So what you just said is an extremely important piece of advice that I'm going to take. I'll keep an eye out for new features and try to adapt immediately.
And so every single principle and point has a contrarian point of view, which is if you have your thing, right? So people think of niche, they think, okay, I need to be dealing with plumbers only, or I need to deal with like, cabinet makers or whatever it is. That's just one type of niche. It's a vertical, right? You have niches like psychographics. So the reason I'm saying this is if you write poetry, for example, and so you wouldn't be doing videos, right? You might do some videos here and there, but your main thing is your niche. They love writing. They have a passion for writing. So you can niche down in the content type that you do as well. And I'm intentionally giving a contrarian point of view because I want to share that it's not one or the other. It's a spectrum of different truths that you can follow. So new features, maybe try them out, but also realize that there is your audience that loves your style, and they love your style because A, it's you, and B, so personal brand is a niche, and B, also they have their own thing, right? So if it's writing, for example, it might be video. So for example, now on Instagram and on Facebook, and by the way, Facebook's not dead. Everyone says that it's dead or it's for old people. It's definitely not. On Facebook and Instagram right now, pictures are more valuable than Reels. At least that's what Instagram is saying, because everyone is making videos. Yeah, so like same thing you said about like everyone catches on. So then the old method goes back to being the good one, and then that changes again, and then it goes back and forth, and thus is life. So
that's actually quite interesting because This is exactly what happened, like I said, with me with Instagram. And I pretty much just gave up on the platform because I said, I just can't do this. It's not something I enjoy. Well, LinkedIn, I've not done that. I've tried to do, like, maybe when I was really pushed, did a little bit of video. But then most of the time, I've stuck with just writing because it's what I'm comfortable with. I honestly don't know whether my audience likes only that. I don't have the data to tell me if I did video consistently, right? Because I've not had any degree of consistency there. Would they prefer that or not? However, I've stuck to it, and it seems as if so far it's working. And we sort of had to see. But I do think that the what you said earlier was the thing that I've not done. Stick to my own style is what I've always done. But try out the new things and see how I can incorporate them as like my takeaway from what you said, because that's something I don't do at all.
Yeah, for sure. And also it's hard because then there's the psychology element, like motivation to actually write. So for me, like I feel more comfortable on video because I spent almost 2 years every single day recording myself, and I used to hate it so much. But the video is easy for me. It's much easier for me to put a camera in front of me and just speak, say something, that it's done. So my thing is now with LinkedIn. So I used to post to LinkedIn all my and this is the what would you call it? The negative about distribution of content. So people say post to one platform or don't post to one platform. I did all platforms, and that helped me in a massive way. The only one platform that I couldn't get traction on was Twitter and LinkedIn. Right, those two platforms. When I posted videos, it didn't matter how many I posted, not one of them went well. And I think that's because people on LinkedIn much prefer to have I don't know, it's almost like a more personal style. They want to know about you and what you're doing, and they don't want it to be like fast paced. It's more of a calming kind of, like, not calming, but deep reading kind of thing, as opposed to scrolling. Even though we do scroll on there, I think that we're more likely to be like scrolling with a dopamine hit on Instagram and TikTok and things like that.
Yeah, I don't have the data that you seem to have across platforms because, like I said, I've done Instagram. I've never really been on Twitter. I'm kind of starting to think I should as well, though. YouTube is another thing that I'm thinking about right now. But as with all things, I think there's limited time, so I've sort of got to also figure out. But I think for me, Twitter is sort of what makes sense next because it's also more of a writing kind of platform, at least is what I understand. So for me, the transition is going to be a little bit more organic than if I were to just jump into YouTube or into Instagram again. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment.
That's great thinking. I think that would be awesome. You can do threads on there and everything. But I wanted to ask, so for people listening who you mentioned when they're starting out, so look at building a personal brand, you have some kind of outreach. And was there a third one you mentioned?
Now, with outreach, I think you can try both channels, that is LinkedIn, by which I don't mean posting content, but finding people that you genuinely think you can help and then like connecting with them, and then have conversations with them that are not selling yourself, but really just trying to understand where they're at and see if you can add value. And then organically, I do think that something comes out of 1 out of 10 interactions that you have. So that's one piece. The other piece is email. I do think you can do email at scale with a lot of personalization right now. So you can try email with outbound. 2 channels, LinkedIn and email, that I'm recommending for outbound. The last thing is events. They're really big, especially post-COVID. I think people just want to meet other people. And I don't know if this is the case in every country, but then I've been in the US and I've been in India. And I know that there's so much happening over the weekdays and over the weekends professionally. Different companies host meet and greets. There's, just catch up with other salespeople kind of things. There are conferences that are happening. So there's so much going on with respect to events, and you can't spread yourself too thin because I, for one, I'm not the kind of person that can just go and draw energy from being in an event. I feel very drained when I am in an event and I have to socialize and network with people. So therefore, I pick and choose what I do. I'm not everywhere. But I think it's extremely important that you do events as a founder because you can understand who you can serve best while you're at events as well. And the one piece of advice, although that wasn't the question, is to recognize that you can't serve everyone. You have to be able to say no to certain customers, and because you'll be able to build some goodwill that way. As early stage founders, I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is business is mostly coming to you. So you're just saying okay and then figuring out how to deliver. And that's a very big mistake, because a lot of times you'll not be able to do a good job. You should have said no to certain things. They'll end up being really, really unprofitable. So you have to understand early on what you can and can't do and be able to say no. That's the other thing that I think is very important. When you do all of the sales, you'll get stuff that doesn't really fit. So just don't take that up.
And timing as well. Timing's a huge thing. And again, in my experience personally, it's just if you do the right thing at the wrong time and the wrong thing at the right time, it just doesn't work. You know, if you overhire, for example, then you're over leveraged and you're spending too much money. You're putting too much money into the business, and then versus, you know, having a diversified approach with your sales system. So many things can go wrong in business, and it's like this. It's a very delicate balance, and this is going to probably sound odd to most people, but it's actually a spiritual thing. And I know it sounds very strange saying that, but it's a very spiritual game in the sense that you have to learn how to have all parts of your life in balance, which to me it doesn't happen from developing yourself in the sense of like, you know, go to Tony Robbins events or, you know, go and learn how to invest, but it's got to be a diversified approach. And I've found that when my life is in a good place, when my health is good, you know, when I'm meditating every single day, when I'm balanced, things work out better, and there's just a certain kind of flow to the day.
I cannot agree with you more. I think that a lot of the content that I post on LinkedIn is about how I manage myself, so to speak, right? And that is, for me, working out is important. Taking steps like walking for a certain amount of time every single day, if possible, in nature is really, really important. Where I live, it's a city, so getting to nature isn't really that easy. So I have to go hunt for it sometimes. But then that is another piece that's important to me. Meditating as much as possible. I'm not as regular as you, but like most days is also a really important piece. And I think that your life, your business is kind of just a manifestation of how you feel on the inside. So if you are feeling balanced, comfortable, and joyful, I truly feel like that manifests on the outside. So a lot of times when things go wrong or I'm having like a bad month, rather than just focusing on like how can I change that, I kind of look mostly immediately at how am I feeling. Like I do that internal check. Am I doing okay? Have I been particularly stressed? Have I been neglecting taking care of myself and all of these three pillars, right? Like the body, the mind, and the soul. Have I been taking care of these things? And then most often I will find that one of these things is imbalanced, and that's why I've missed seeing something right with work. And a lot of times, nothing changes in the external world, but your perspective changes. So, what seemed like doom and gloom will just look like, hey, I just have to get through this or past this, or maybe it's even an opportunity, right? So, I could not agree with you more when you said that, Luke.
And that's the definition of working smart as opposed to working hard, because when you're burnt out, you're working hard. It's like you're pushing a rock up a hill, so to speak. But when you're in that flow, when you're feeling good, when your mind, body, and spirit are aligned in a healthy way, it's like life's pulling you towards happiness and towards abundance. I know it sounds so woo-woo, and it's people that are very business-orientated, Type A personalities, going to be like, "What do you mean like this? Like I'm just going to work and be Gary Vaynerchuk and do 20 hours a day kind of thing." But the truth is, once you're burnt out, try and get on a sales call and win that sale. Try to be a good leader who's compassionate, who listens, who cares, you know, who thinks strategically, who's creative, thinks outside the box. Try and do that when you're burnt out, and I guarantee it's virtually impossible.
I agree with you. I also think one of the things that I really like to do when I start feeling like I'm burnt out is to just see if I can help somebody. Like what I mean by that is um, uh, giving as an act, right? It could be anything. It could be your knowledge, it could be your expertise. Maybe you just give somebody a recommendation on LinkedIn, but you do something that is entirely motivated by nothing personal, and you just want to help someone, and you can volunteer. That's something that really helps me as well. It really balances me. It really helps me in a very small way. I know for a fact that this act is going to help somebody and make them happy, and to me somehow that really brings back joy, balance. Whenever I'm in that phase where I'm feeling like work is really getting me burnt out.
Absolutely. Just quickly, how are you for time? I know you had something after this that you had to do. Are we okay for time?
Off by 12:15, so we have another 25 minutes.
Okay, cool, cool, awesome. I wanted to, yeah, it's cool. That's fine. That's fine. We might start wrapping up now. And again, we'll cut these parts out so there's not some weird conversation happening in between. I wanted to ask, so you've been in this business now or just as an entrepreneur, you say for 8 years? Okay. So what is the most recent amount of lessons that you've learnt in your journey? Like, is it the same as when you started as far as the things you've learned, or are things new now? Or is it the same lesson but in a new way?
I think the lesson is, when you're first starting out, you think, oh, if I get that first million, that's everything, right? I'm never going to have a problem after that. Life's just going to flow. And then I think my lesson consistently that I've been getting over the years is you will hit every one of your dreams. And then you realize that they will come with opportunities and with their own set of problems as well. And therefore, your life is never ever going to be that you get there and everything's going to be perfect. Perfection is an illusion. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And a lot of times I think that it's not just as an entrepreneur, it's even living life, right? People think if only I were to like it. I also coach people, right? I do personal coaching, business coaching. So one of the things I also recognize is a lot of times people attach themselves to a goal to the extent that they start thinking, if I were to just get there, everything's going to be okay. So when you first start out, or when in 2019 we were going through this cash flow issue, I thought, oh, if I were to just get to that million, I'm never going to have a cash flow issue. That's not true, because you get to that million, you're going to be having services to support that revenue, which means there's that much more people. So your costs have also gone up at that stage, right? So I think one of the important lessons that always keeps coming back to me is to live life every day. And I am all for having goals. It's very important to have goals, but then you're not going to feel better and life's not going to become your happily ever after just because you got there. And for a lot of people, I actually think that's quite traumatic, because you get to your goal and then you realize you don't really feel any different from yesterday or the year before that. That's why, what we talked about a little bit ago, which is to make sure that you're feeling good internally, is the most important piece, because how you feel, how happy you feel, how accomplished you feel, how content you feel cannot be a product of accomplishing a certain revenue goal or getting onto some kind of for us, for instance, right? We wanted to be on Clutch's best agencies. We wanted to get that Clutch badge. It was a big thing. We got it. Yeah, we got more customers, we got referrals and all of that, but not much changed with how I felt, because I was still doing the same things every day. Every goal is going to be like that. So you're not going to feel magically happier, because that dopamine hit will last you a very short period of time. Happiness, that ecstasy is very short lived, but your joy is pervasive. And I think we need to cultivate that. It's one of the things that I tell everybody that I coach as well. You're always going to be chasing goals in life. That's not a problem. It's perfectly okay to do that. It drives you, it motivates you as a human. But while you're chasing goals, you still need to live. You need to be happy. You need to be doing the things that are important, and you will definitely miss later. Pay attention to your family, to your friends, because all of these things time bound, right? People are not going to be waiting forever. You're going to be whatever your age is right now. That only once in your life. Today is only going to be today for a really short period of time. If you're able to kind of get that balance, I think that it does not matter really, right? Whether you achieve that goal or not, you're still going to be happy and joyful. When you don't achieve your goal, which will happen a lot more often than you achieving your goal, you're still going to be okay. You're going to know that there's tomorrow, and you can pick yourself up and do something better.
And that's for those people who are prioritizing perhaps work over family. And again, the principle of balance, which keeps coming up, because if you don't have your family life in order, your business will eventually come undone. If you have your business in order, then your family will come undone. It's just this kind of, it's like a managing life and balancing life seems to be the key. Lovely. Well, I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to have a conversation. Is there any final message or thought you would like to leave with those listening?
Just that, when you choose to be an entrepreneur, it's not an easy path. It is always easier to be in a corporate job. And I have had at least 3 times when I've been running my business when I said, I could be in a job and it would be so much easier. And that's true. But the biggest thing that you get with being an entrepreneur is freedom. Freedom with my time. Yes, I probably work longer and harder than I do and than I would do at a job, but I also get to choose when I work. I can pick up my daughter, I can drop her off, I can play with her in the evening, but then choose to put in extra hours in the morning or in the night. And that kind of freedom is irreplaceable. That's why I continue to do what I do today. So if you have that question, why am I doing this? Remember that the biggest thing that you get from being an entrepreneur is freedom with your own time and the knowledge, the absolute certainty that there's somebody out there that you're helping. I don't think you get that necessarily always with the corporate job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Such a pleasure being here, Luke. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Getting Mental podcast. If you like this episode, then you'll love this one here and this one here. Check them out.